I just think that no one should ever fear hitting 50. They should be excited about hitting 50. 50 is kind of like a whole new chance to just embrace everything that you didn't have time for before.
Hi everybody, welcome to Homebody, where we are talking with AJ of AJ's Vintage Design. Welcome to our show, AJ.
Hello.
Nice to have you here.
I'm happy to be here.
Go ahead and jump right in. Tell me about yourself and how you got started with AJ Vintage Design.
Well, actually, it kind of just evolved. When being a teacher, I always had that love for teaching. Well, on top of that, I always incorporated art in some way into my lessons with my students, and especially I taught special ed as well. When we moved and, I didn't want to keep renewing my teaching license every state we lived in, I decided to be done. And I missed that being able to teach, but then I also missed being creative. So I actually have a patent and a children's book that I wrote. In doing the patent, I had to teach myself to sew for my prototypes. And as I'm teaching myself to sew, this is in my early 40s, teaching myself to sew, I fell in love with sewing. And so then I started a YouTube channel. I figured if I'm going to teach myself to sew, I may as well teach somebody else. Then I get to be creative and I get to teach at the same time. And I used to go to the thrift store. I'd buy something that someone probably would never wear again or is damaged or, it's just kind of wild. And I would tear it apart and make it into something new. I have all these tutorials on my YouTube channel. That's Fashion Toppings, which is now called AJ's Vintage Designs and Fashion Toppings. But then we built a house and I didn't have a sewing studio set up yet. So then I started repurposing furniture. Slowly, I'd buy this furniture just as a creative outlet and with no intention of making it into a business. But then as you accumulate this furniture that you've done, you have to sell it to get rid of it. So I started selling it and it kind of evolved into a business slowly. A paint company, Dixie Paints, had reached out to me and said, hey, would you try our paints? And I was like, absolutely. And that was back in 2017. And it just really took off from there. And so at that time, I was going through furniture and it was really, the income was there. But then as my following grew, I found a need for other creative outlets. And so I created AJ's Creative Coaching, which is a subscription coaching group. I just don't want to be creative by myself in the garage. I have to be a part of a community. And then it also fulfilled my need to teach because I wasn't teaching anymore. So I can't even tell you which one I like more, teaching or the painting. So the two go hand in hand, and it completely fulfills my need for both. And that's how it all got started.
Wow, that's a great beginning. And just the natural evolution of that, it just grew so organically. And once a teacher, always a teacher, right?
Yes.
Yes. And you found a different way to teach instead of that whole hassle of renewing your, teaching credential. That's fantastic. Wow. So it sounds like you've always been a creative person, just even in the classroom.
In the classroom, especially with special ed, you have to be able to keep their attention. And so when you're teaching about cells, they can look at pictures all day long and they wouldn't be excited. So then it's kind of fun for me because I'm like, okay, got to do something creative. So then you're bringing in licorice sticks, little gummy bears, and you're creating cells. So then they remember, the membrane, it was this piece of candy, and it gave them a better visual. If there's a book that was assigned, for that grade and they had to be able to read that book, and it wasn't something that really sparked their interest, I would turn around and we would make an art project out of it so that a backboard of I had a large wall. We would make the characters out of paper plates, and they had to remember characteristics, the personalities and what that person did in the book so they can properly, create that character. And then they remembered those characters the most because they had to use a different part of their brain, to create something for it.
So you added the tactile, the visual, and you didn't have an art background prior, but it sounds like you've always been just so creative. Back to how it became an online process with YouTube and all that. What do you enjoy the most about sharing that journey online?
Actually, it's the community. When you're doing online classes and I paint for free every Friday night. And so it's the same people that show up. You build these friendships with these people you've never met. And I think of several of the people that have been watching me for years as some of my closest friends. You know, we message back and forth on a daily basis, and the community is actually the best part of this whole process. When you're in a community with like-minded people who also want to, like, you know, build their creativity and build their skills and learn more, it's just kind of like you all have something in common, and it just becomes like a supportive community as well.
Yeah, you have that common goal, and then you support each other along the way. You have so many hobbies that have developed out of your vintage clothing line. When did that start, by the way?
Well, 2017 was my furniture, and I'm guessing when I started doing the product, like 2006 is when, you know, I started doing with, you know, starting off with the sewing and everything. But my love for that, you know, you have to constantly evolve. And so right now I'm in the process of starting an online clothing boutique. That should be up and running within the next 3 months. Right now I've got, you know, my reseller's license. I'm working with, you know, the web developer and getting my inventory in. So on the side, I'm adding on not a vintage, but a new clothing boutique as well online. Because online is the place to be.
Absolutely. And will you add some of your vintage pieces to that?
No, probably not, because most of my vintage stuff is actually the furniture, and shipping of furniture is you know, it's a little more, it's expensive, and I want someone, and I also like to see someone like come in and see one of my pieces and know exactly, oh, I know where I'm going to put that. Oh, I was coming for that one, but I'm going home with that one, that type of thing. I sell out of a booth too, out of a vintage mall, you know, so that works good. But the clothing boutique is going to be new clothing, and it's, you know, not hands-on where I'm sewing and that kind of stuff. It's going to be all new stuff.
So just repurposing that furniture that you shifted into in 2017, how did you get started in that? Did you just teach yourself?
Well, I always kind of painted furniture. We used to flip houses, and we moved a lot because of his jobs. So for me, with my kids, to keep them interested and excited about each new move, I kind of got into repurposing the furniture that way, just as like a personal thing. My kids, they would be excited about the next house because my oldest son loves dogs. So I would paint a mural of a dog catching a Frisbee over his bed, a dog house on the wall. So I paint murals on their walls and paint their furniture when they're little. I did the Winnie the Pooh and Tigger bouncing all over their furniture. And so I did it personally, but never even thought of it as a business. But then when I couldn't sew, I needed to do something. And that's just how it evolved. And when you want to learn a new skill, you have to try it on something. So if I'm trying, you know, reverse imaging, I would buy a piece of furniture so I could try that technique. And then I'd sell it just so I'd make room for something else to come in. And so it's just a natural evolution of, you know, how it just all kind of came about.
Is there any project that was intimidating for you, or maybe a favorite that you have?
Well, an intimidating one is when my husband and I decided, usually he doesn't help me with the projects. He's my biggest supporter, but he's busy. And we found a dresser, and we had this idea of, let's make this dresser into an entryway bench into this Airbnb that we owned. And so I needed his help. It was challenging because it was cutting it apart. It was supporting areas but it was fun. It's one of the funnest projects. It's not the prettiest project we've ever done, but it was the funnest one because I got to sit there and kind of show my husband what I love to do. And then he I could see that he was excited about it, but he didn't want to admit that he was excited about it. But I think he understood it. So that was challenging because we had to think a lot about support and what we're going to do. And it's probably one of my favorite projects too. It's not, like I said, it's not the one I would say was the prettiest, but it has memories. It has special memories to it.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And he probably gained a whole new respect for you and like your creative process and what you do, because there's so many different ways to think about how to go about a project like that. And he was like, wow, he probably really admired that thought process. I see you have some pieces right behind you. Do you mind telling me about those?
Yeah, sure. Well, the canvas is a class that I taught. It's called Intuitive Art, and it's just layering, and it's easier than people think. You just keep, putting that canvas away and bring it back out the next day and taping off areas and then repainting it. And as you take the tape off, old images and areas are left behind. So I did the canvases as a class, and then the pop art chairs. Those are what I love to do. If I ever got, well, I'm sitting on a strawberry one right now. Every piece of furniture I do is based on, okay, what do I want to learn? Or what do I want to challenge myself with? Or what do I want to teach? And so there is no set style that I do. You know, farmhouse to pop art to vintage, French country, you know, a little bit of everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it runs the gamut. That's really neat. What do you have any advice you would give someone if somebody wanting to start a new hobby or a project mid or, you know, in their 50s
It is never too late to try something new. But the one thing that, you know, especially with my, like my creative group that I coach, you know, I'm constantly telling them that, you know, when you start and you try something new, I try stuff new with them a lot, stuff I've never done before. And I want them to understand that when you first try something out, it's going to be a struggle. Don't see mistakes as mistakes. You have to consider each mistake as a learning opportunity. And I always tell everybody, you know, I tell everybody that creativity is actually a muscle. If we're starting off in our 50s and we haven't been creative our whole life, we can't expect that, okay, there's a canvas here, I'm going to try this, and I watch someone do it online, but mine looks nothing like theirs. If you keep trying to find that one thing that you're really good at, then you're setting yourself up for constant frustration. You have to find something that you enjoy, but not necessarily, you don't have to be good at it. It's a muscle. The more you do it, the repetition, the better you're going to get at it. It's like anything that you do, you got to build that muscle. And I guess that's the best advice I'd give people is don't give up. Treat every mistake as a blessing and as an opportunity to learn to be better.
Oh, that's great advice. I love that. I love your analogy of the creative outlet being a muscle that you just have to work and find. Do you feel like having a creative outlet has changed your life?
Well, for me, it's just, if I wasn't doing something creative or if I wasn't teaching, every day would kind of feel like the same. So having some type of creative outlet, whether you're doing furniture or whether you're sewing, but being able to start a new project, or, you know, you start something and you finish it, you're proud of it, you've accomplished it, now you move on to something new. Every day is, you know, something new. You're not repeating the same thing every day. And so I just think that's what's been good for me. I get to teach, and then I also get to be able to just have those endorphins from doing all these different projects. You got to feed yourself. I mean, you know, you can't just, you know, stick with one hobby and then repeat that every day. You need to expand upon it, become better, or try something new, or dabble in several hobbies. But that is just a way to make every day different, every day enjoyable, and have those endorphins that just get you excited about accomplishing something.
Oh, and the fact that you can take what you love doing and that what fills your soul, and then share it with others. That's just so wonderful for your whole community. So kudos to you for that. I have a little bit of rapid fire for you. Would that be is this a good time to get you going? These are some little answers to questions.
Okay.
Define your over 50 journey so far in 3 words.
Challenging, empowering, and fulfilling, I'd have to say.
Ah, good ones. Yeah, I can see that. What are 3 things that you cannot live without?
Okay, well, first one, of course, is my family. My family, you know, absolutely. Second one, you're gonna laugh, but it has to be my phone. And don't take that the wrong way. But my oldest, he's 27. He lives with us. He has Asperger's, and my youngest lives not far away from here, but he lives. He's 23. My youngest, and for me, my phone is just like, you know, if my family's not around me, I still have them close to me. And number 3 is actually my dogs. So even, you know, if no one's around and you're feeling a little down, boom, those 2 dogs are in my lap.
Oh, those are great answers. And I concur with all 3 of those as a mom of 3 boys and a dog lover and dog owner. Great answers. Wow. What's the best advice that you've ever received?
Since we've moved so often, I would have to say that don't see change as a challenge, see change as an opportunity to pivot in a new direction. It's a new opportunity, not a challenge. I first started looking at it as, as a bad thing. And, but then, someone gave me the advice of, no, this is an opportunity. It's not a challenge. This is an opportunity for something new to come in your path. That was the best advice. Every time some change or some challenge comes into my life, I have to see that as an opportunity to either pivot and bring new adventure into my life or not. And if I don't, then I'm missing out on so much. So I embrace change now when I used to struggle with change.
And I think as we age, we get maybe set in our ways and a little adverse to change or uncomfortable with change. But if you allow it into your life, look what it's done to your life. I mean, it was because of the constant moving that you were able to just grow and flourish so much with what you do. So that's.
I also think that when you're over 50, I think this is our time. This is our time. We've raised our kids. My husband, he retired and then he turned around and bought a business. So he's running a business for himself. I just think that no one should ever fear hitting 50. They should be excited about hitting 50. 50 is kind of like a whole new chance to just embrace everything that you didn't have time for before.
Yes. The no holds barred club that you've joined. And what are you looking forward to most in this new chapter?
Just constantly trying to expand. I mean, like I said, with the AJ's Vintage Designs, and then doing the AJ's Creative Coaching, and now I'll be doing Fashion Toppings Boutique, and it's just like, okay, so once I get that up and going, what do I want to tackle next? What do I want to add to my plate? And so I'm looking forward to this journey because everything I've wanted to do when I was younger and I didn't have the time, I'm going to try to tackle it all. I look forward to this journey and being able to focus more on, me now that all my kids, I'm not trying to sound selfish, but, the kids are raised. I don't have the sporting events and all the traveling and all this kind of stuff. Now is the time that I get to celebrate with them. I get to celebrate their life, but also I get to now do all the things that I've always wanted to do. And so I'm excited about this part of the journey.
Oh, that's great to hear. Such a great story, and you're such a great inspiration. I thank you for sharing all of your words of wisdom with me today.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it.